Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm here today with the gorgeous Leonie, and this is a topic that we've wanted to talk about for quite some time, and it's been very busy in your life and very busy in my life. So I'm so happy that we're talking about this. So we're going to be talking about psychic kids and sensing sight. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's great to be here, Solreta. We've known each other for a long time, so it's nice to reconnect.
Yeah, it's lovely. So I'll just read to the audience your bio, and I just want to say thank you to our gorgeous audience for joining us as well. I can see a few comments, and yeah, it's lovely to have you all here with us. So Leonie, and how do I pronounce your last name? Because I don't want to get it wrong.
Appelt.
Appelt. Perfect. So Leonie Appelt is a licensed instructor with the ICU Academy in the UK. She's also studied the method in which the infovision is based in the US and Romania. So her sessions allow children to experience their own life force energy. So this is a really, really exciting topic. And I just want to bring up this beautiful photo that we have of some of the students and some of the kids that that you teach and work with. Do you want to maybe start by giving like your perspective on what it is that you're doing and what's like lighting you up in your world at the moment with all of this?
Well, I've been doing it for at least 8 years now, and I started off training my grandchildren initially. Well, I started doing the training myself to train my grandchildren, and it expanded from there. And I've been teaching quite a few children at my home here. But then after COVID, a lot of the homeschool operations were set up in the area, and that enabled me to access larger groups of kids because a lot of these home-based schools are more open and are more holistic in their approach. And the biggest part of this for me, and there's a lot of documentaries out there that are calling these things that the children are doing superpowers and something that's exceptional. But you know what? When I teach the children, it's so normal to them. They open up and they're starting to see through a blindfold. They're starting to move objects with their mind, and it's like, oh yeah. And I get so excited by them, and the whole thing for me is empowering them, giving them more confidence in themselves, making them aware that they're more than what they are told they are, in particular, more than what they are, and they have more information that they can access to bring into their reality to make any sort of decisions in their life. And just, confidence building. That's the biggest thing for me. It's nothing to do with superpowers or anything like that.
Oh, that's perfectly explained. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that'll be watching this that'll be like, I wish that I had a school like that, or I wish that, I got to do that training when I was little, because I know that I was always waiting for like the master to show up or, to be whisked away to Hogwarts or something, and this is pretty much as close as you can get to, going to a Hogwarts sort of school.
Yes.
And it really is something natural. And with myself, like teaching people to see auras and things that I've done for years, it really is a natural ability that we have. And when we look into the anatomy, we see that we have all these light receptors, that we have all these sacred geometries within the body. We've got all the hard drive and the equipment, and we just need to get the interface or download the software. And I think that's what you're working with. You're helping give instruction for the kids to use that magical and amazing software that's, it's a natural gift.
Yeah. And I've been asked why I'm constantly using the wording, I activate the children. It's not something I'm doing, but they are being activated. And they say, what do you mean by activated? I say, as soon as I give them the exercise where they're transferring energy from one hand to the other and they're feeling it physically, you can see their little mind go click. Oh, I can feel that, because we're manipulating the energy and they're feeling it in real time. And what you can sense the activation taking place. They're recognizing it. It's been in the background for a long time, and then it's something they want to start to play with, because we're born and we're taught to use our 5 senses because we need to navigate the 3D. and all the extra information that they're sort of pushed into the background or been suppressed by society. So once they start to actively participate in the mind vision stuff that we set up, they're recognizing it again. They're remembering what's already there. So it doesn't take long for them to reconnect, like within hours, minutes.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And I guess what would be happening on the inside of the brain, if we look into all the little neurons and little brain cells and neural networks that are firing, all these little synaptic pathways would be strengthening, reconnecting. So you're actually forming permanent changes within the brain. So these little ones, even if they maybe don't do some practice for a while, you know, we still know that those ropey brain connections would be there, but maybe a little bit more dormant. So I guess it's always good to, you know, to keep that practice up, keep building that psychic muscle or that interface muscle. What do you feel, or actually, I guess we should probably preface first by talking about, like, if you could put into your words or describe like what your program is like, sensing sight, or sort of like, how would you talk to the parents if they were interested in having their kids learn sensing sight?
Well, we set up an initial meeting and we just discuss. I have discussed with them about their initial awareness of energy fields and extrasensory perception. And look, most of the parents that come to me anyway, it's word of mouth, and they have a certain amount of awareness with all this anyway, and they're keen to introduce their children to this. Most of them want to do it themselves, but it's really difficult for adults. Adults can do it, but it takes a lot of lots and lots of training. So for me, my explanation to the parents is, once the children start to practice here, it sets up a library of information within the structure of the brain that will continue anyway. It's good to practice, but once it's been activated, it's staying there. And it's more than seeing through the blindfold. So I'm very adamant about communicating that it's not like a party trick. It's more than seeing through the blindfold. That's just the beginning of the process. And other senses will come into play because it's opening them up to the field. And it's a serious subject. So, you know, I'll address the fact that they have to be very aware of subtle changes around their kids. And a lot of it is, it is very positive, because they become more calm and centered, more focused in general. Because I think on a deeper level, because it's building their self-awareness and confidence around what this practice provides, it just, it sits in a space that they're always able to access. So that's the biggest thing I explain to the parents. I take them through the sequence of the exercises that we'll be doing, but it's just to emphasize that it's more about seeing through a blindfold. It's bringing in other information that will open them and make them more aware, in general, bring more control into their life, because they can sense danger, they can sense, anticipate something that's coming up for them in the next few days. And yeah.
Which is fascinating, especially when you look at the current programming happening within, you know, the mainstream system and news and everything else, and predictive programming. And yeah, it's so important that our kids maintain that that vital information feedback that's coming in from the quantum. And yeah, it's incredible what you're doing. I really, I love and admire it. And my kids went through when they...
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
We just cut out then.
Anyway. Oh, what were you saying, Leonie?
Oh, to me, yes, because of the manipulation that's out there, it strengthens their awareness around being manipulated. And, oh, hang on, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel right. And I won't put my attention to that, as they say, you know, to observe and not absorb.
Yeah.
Just to bring that, you know, into their psyche, I guess. Yeah.
And I think this is one of those things that, imagine, like, if all of the adults had been taught this growing up, we'd be living in a different world. So it really, you know, the kids are the future, as some people have talked about in the comments. My kids actually, when they were little, my son was maybe 6 months old, I think, and my daughter was about 2.5. And we went to the Shashita training. So there's a Japanese Shashita school method that you and I have talked about that my kids were in when they were really little. So one of the exercises they would do, because I guess in Steiner and in the more theosophical approach, your child's still really part of your aura up until about age 7, or
Yes.
part of the mother's aura, especially. In Aboriginal culture, they say about age 5. So whatever you're reading, absorbing, whoever you're surrounding yourself with is kind of telepathically, psychically being transferred to the child. So with the Shashita method training, the parents would sit in with the class and we would close our eyes and go into meditation. And the first process would be to visualize yourself as a tree. So even though my 6-month-old at the time couldn't, visualize a tree or, but he was absorbing through the energy of what I was doing. And so you visualize the leaves on the tree, feeling your roots connected into the earth and the ground, and you feel that breath and that, exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen. And it was such a beautiful way to physically and include all of the senses as much as you could with the breath. They also would teach cyclical breathing. So doing like your box breath to go in, holding between each inhale and exhale.
Yeah.
And they would take the kids through a series of flashcard exercises. And they were saying because the left brain gets bored, the faster you do the flashcards,
Yeah.
the more receptive it is. And I'll ask
Yeah.
you a couple of questions on that as well, and like speed and things. The other thing that they did was have a little bag, and they would say to the kids, all right, now pick out the object that feels warm. And they would have a little red teddy bear and a tiny little blue plastic teddy bear. And they would teach the kids that the red was warm and the blue was cool. So they'd put their hand in. And what I noticed was the younger that the kids started this, the more accurate they were. My son would get like 6 correct answers in a row with things. And then he'd be like ready to move on with something else.
Yeah.
And it was really like child-directed play. Like it was
Yes.
yeah.
That's what I do. That's exactly what I do.
Awesome.
And that's empowering with it. So I let them make decisions. Like I might have 3 or 4 scenarios set up before they come here. Well, initially before they come here, I tune in and tap into themselves, and I connect with their energy field before they even come to feel them out. And I'll have different scenarios exactly like that. And I allow them to choose the exercise for the day, because again, it's all about empowering them. So it's not me telling them what to do. It's us sort of playing together. And there's a psychological aspect to all that. There's little triggers that you put in there to get to open them up more. But it's all about fun and feeling connected to everything. And we do breathing exercises, all of that. Very similar, yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. And what I loved about like with Shashita as well, he talked about, unfortunately, his past. He was in his 90s when I went and did some of his workshops and things when I was pregnant with my son. But he always talked about the whole brain approach. With sensing sight, it sounds like that it's similar in that like love and, holding that beautiful reverence and space for the child is the most important for brain health and development. It sounds like you have that similar approach.
Yeah, heart-brain coherence going on. Yeah. How we start with the central part of the heart, and we expand our light from there. And we use all of our senses, all of our 5 senses as well. It's all one thing, because everything's consciousness, and that's fundamental to everything. So there's not one specific way. And I know I work with a lot of autistic kids, and they have a specific mechanism as well. So I allow them to bring the information in that suits them, that they feel comfortable with. I don't say you have to obtain it this way. How are you feeling? How are you bringing it in? Are you hearing it? Are you feeling it? Have you got temperature coming in? There's all different ways they can receive the information. So I let them explore that for themselves, and they're teaching me. They're always teaching me.
Oh, that's incredible. And as you're talking about that, I just keep getting a vision of expanded states of consciousness. So these kids, I guess, become very aware of the quantum reality, the quantum universe. And I guess when they're feeling into things, there's a little bit of quantum entanglement happening. Because I
Oh,
know
yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
with the way I read, I'm quantumly entangling myself with different things and downloading. So essentially, these kids are, using their psychic senses or,
Channeling.
like ESP, and little channels and things, but it is a natural gift. Let's play maybe a couple of the videos that we've got that you sent me as well. Hopefully we can get the sound to work on a few of these. And we have a photo of your gorgeous granddaughter. Do you want to just describe to people like the mindfold that she's wearing and what she's doing in this little exercise?
Yeah, this is the mindfold. This is the mask we tend to use, and there's lots of people doing this all over the world. I'm not the only one. And we tend to gravitate toward this particular mask because it blocks out 100% of the light, the physical light. And that's what it's about, making things quiet in there so we can access more information. So shutting down that 3D world.
And that's got foam with the area for the eyes cut out, just for those that
Yes.
find it a bit harder to see.
So there's a double edge, more or less, yeah. So your eyes sit inside.
Oh, there it is.
So there's the edge, and there's like a double edge, and it pushes hard up against you. You cut that. When I studied in Canada with some Russian practitioners, they had technology that they would put inside the actual cavity here that had sensors in it that would read the level of any physical light that was coming in, and it was -1.
Wow.
So they had physical technology that could test these masks.
Wow. That's so cool. I need to get one and practice. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Oh, I think you should.
And I've had moments actually just thinking about like talking about our questions and everything the last couple of days and what I wanted to ask you. It's interesting because we have moments of where we kick in with like remote view or kind of like sensing in the auric field. I had one experience where I was driving with someone, and all of a sudden I just kept having like clear, really distinct visions, almost like holographically seeing around the corner. And I just started to describe it. I'm like, there's going to be this colored car here. There's going to be a bin parked there. There's going to be, and I could describe what's in the street. And then the person driving's like, all right, then let's see around this corner. And I think we went around 5 blocks. But what I noticed was it was keeping the emotional state and the receptivity to the quantum. But as soon as you step outside of that space and you start to go, oh my God, how am I doing that? It's like gone. Can you maybe also
left brain, yeah.
Yeah. And is that what it is? Do you feel that we're just stepping back into the left brain?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we're interpreting instead of feeling and sensing. And you're doing it naturally. And that's what the children get out of this experience too. And we teach them to anticipate what's around the corner. Practice seeing the next car that's coming, what color it is as a game, or what type of car it's going to be. But yeah, that's exactly what. Or we say you might go for a walk in an open paddock, and you're choosing which path to go along, and your intuition will activate to the point where you'll know where the danger might lie. There might be a snake there, or some sort of interruption to your destination. So you're going the right way and constantly navigating. And when people ask me if you're opening them up too much, this is exposing them too much, I don't think so, because I think the brain is a receptor and a receiver, and I think has its own intelligence anyway. This consciousness has its own intelligence, and it only allows in what you're capable of dealing with. So yeah.
And interesting you say like about sensing the snakes and things, because that's how I sometimes felt the energy of a snake before I've seen it in the bush. And I think that's perhaps the way that we would have worked in tribal situations and things. Yeah. Sorry, I get a bit ADHD distracted.
I was just going to say that's an absolute ADHD trait, and that's the benefit of having ADHD, because you've got all your octopus arms out there all at once. It can be a bit overwhelming.
And it's attention dialed into a higher dimension. I'll
That's
never
it.
forget that acronym. It's amazing. So we've got your beautiful granddaughter here as well. Do you want to explain to people like how kids can actually, what are they picking up and seeing or sensing? Does it come through like touch-wise, visually?
Well, I take them through a process where I expand their heart space and acknowledge their inner light. And we expand that beyond the room, beyond the property, beyond the Earth's atmosphere, and we go, we fly to the moon, things like that, and we identify stars and things. So just through that process of feeling and seeing themselves expand to that point, they start to open straight away. Oh, I can see light in the mask. Oh, I can see little stars. We pull attention to that and we continue the exercise. Oh, what's that bright light up there? And they'll start to open. It's a 360 thing. It's not, we're used to using our eyes, so a lot of them will open in this area. But like Wendy Gallant that has her site, teaching adults online. When she trained, she had a little boy open through his elbow, and he was reading with his elbow and seeing with his elbow. That's where his sight was coming in his field.
I get it with the hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one little girl yesterday, I was training yesterday, and she opened up above her head and to the right side of her head, and she was seeing there, which can be a bit confusing for them initially because they think, what's going on? But it's like a funnel, a small funnel that they're looking through, and they're trying to work out what they're actually seeing, and the brain's getting used to seeing in a different way.
That's so cool. And I've heard that we have the same like retina kind of receptor cells throughout the body. And I've seen amazing things. I saw the gorgeous Lakeside Laura has asked about, like, is it too late for training adults? And I've seen how they're training blind people in, I think it was in Germany. It's in one of those documentaries. Can you maybe talk a little bit also about training adults? Because I know that you've worked with older people as well as kids.
Well, yeah, well, not so much me actually, but my friends in Canada are training adults online. And they're working with the blind. I mean, this predominantly all this work started with people training the blind to see. And then they thought, well, if the blind are able to see this way, sighted people should be able to see this way too. And that's been around for years and years and years. If I can mention Wendy's page, you follow Wendy's?
I don't think I have her page, but did you want to maybe just give a shout?
Learning intuitive site, Wendy Gallant. She has a YouTube channel. She's training adults, and she's worked with a couple of blind people online. And Rob Freeman, who's another friend, his is seeing blindfolded, and he's training with two particular people for a long time. One of them is blind, and the other lady's going blind. So he's been working with them for quite a while, plus others. So that'd be good for people, the adults, to go in, because they've got so much content and they've been doing it for so long. So I introduced them initially when I had my training. I said, you might be interested in this. And then they climbed on board, and then they started their YouTube channels, and they just took it to the world. And it's just opened up for so many people, because a lot of the trainers that have trained in this sort of kept their cards close to their chest. They wanted to own the method. Not all of them. And they just decided to just bring it to the public, and it's been amazing. It's sort of exploded from there.
Awesome. Yeah. And it's interesting. It makes me think of, like, when you were describing about getting them to sort of like go out into the universe and the galaxies and the stars and things. That sounds like what Dr. Joe Dispenza describes in getting into, quantum reality, getting out of the body, which is also where we create. So, it wouldn't be out of the question for people to actually recover vision and things too, because I know he's had people in his seminars that were born blind that have all of a sudden the visions just come online and activated. So I think that we can extend this kind of work and research into organ regeneration, into literally rebuilding ourselves as a cellular structure from that quantum blueprint. So I love what you're doing so much. We have a question from John. He said, does the crystal structure of the pineal help to tune in? I had heard something that it was like more using the receptor cells like in the skin. And is that true? Or are we using...
Look, I think it's everything. I don't know what's true because I don't claim to know the intricacies of this. It's just a broad stroke of consciousness to me, which affects everything, and everyone will pull in the information in different ways. That's my experience with the kids, because I can feel them. I can feel it when they're pulling in the information. I can feel it moving around their internal structure. So I'm not really sure. I'm sure of course the pineal gland's got something to add to the picture, but I think it's such a holistic thing, and I think any science-based research with this is sort of a waste of time, because it's such a movable thing and an individual thing. You can't do any real structured double-blind experiments to prove that it exists and how it works. And to me, it doesn't matter because I see it working anyway, and I see the benefits of it. I kind of don't need to know the mechanics in a sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep. And I guess that would even slow us down in a way, if we understood the mechanics. I know myself with just being naturally activated as a kid, and, I had to decode and find out all the translations for what colors meant in auras or what feelings and emotions were, and, kind of find my own little database. But it was actually the best thing ever, not having that guide or that programming, because it allowed me that freedom and space to really just, I guess, own it in a way and self-develop. So I think what you're doing with the kids and really guiding them, but that's exciting to hear that you feel it, like the energy within them. Can you maybe describe what it's like to sort of feel when, or what you sense as a practitioner of this as well and a guide, when the kids do kind of open up or get that initial telescope type vision? What are you feeling change in the atmosphere around you, or are you feeling it like within your body too?
Oh yes, I feel it within my body. I get goosebumps all over, and I feel the lift. It's just a lightness, and it's really hard to explain. When I'm training them, I can feel them shift from the left to the right brain. So that's the ability of the trainer to pull them back to where you want them. And it is a holistic thing between both the spheres. It's not, to me, it's not a dominant right-sided activity. But just feeling them, you feel them like, if you're walking along a path with a child and they start to wander off onto another path, you just pull them back into the destination, so to speak. It's kind of like that. And so when you're a trainer, you've got to be really aware, and you've got to constantly, like you said before, you've got to jump from one thing to the next because it gets bored. The brain gets bored. It needs a challenge. So there's a lot of energetic input that goes into it, and because you're sitting in the same space together and you're connecting together. So they're pulling from me and I'm pulling from them, and yes, I guess that's the best answer.
That's a great answer. And it just sounds like you're in flow state.
Oh, very much in flow. Yes. Yeah.
And speaking of like some of the activities that are fun and keep the kids in right brain, this was probably one of the favorite exercises that I'm about to show. So let me just bring this little screen up and I'll let you describe. So what should people expect to see? Because I think I watched this maybe 2 times just to get the picture of what's happening. Do you want to set us up for, and hopefully fingers crossed the sound works?
Okay. This is the kids. We use a swinging bottle in the center of the room because they just like it. It's fun. They think they're going to get hit. But the idea is they've got the blindfolds on, and this one boy here in particular, I have been working with him for a while. But he tends to, with most children, once they're open, but some it comes and goes. So this is like a life or death situation that we put into play. They don't want to be hit by the bottle, so they've got to see the bottle coming. But
And
they get it.
I'll push play because it looks like so much fun. Can you see this on your screen? Does that come through properly?
I can see it, yeah.
Okay, let's fingers crossed. Let's push play and see the bottle being swung.
So
that I love your gorgeous laugh, Leonie. It's contagious, and I'm sure the kids.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, I think we're on. Sorry.
Okay. I'll shut up now.
I was going to say the same thing. So I was just saying, I love your contagious laugh. You can tell, like, you can feel your energy interacting with the kids in that flow state. It's beautiful. And John's saying it reminds him of using the force.
Yes, very hardcore sight work, we call it. Sometimes it's very rowdy.
I'm sure the kids love it.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Yeah. And it seems like hopefully it was working on the audience end too. Let me pop up the next one. So what's happening in this scene that we've got here?
With these kids, they're very ADHD, so very hyperactive. So this is without the masks after we trained with the mask. And I have a little remote viewing exercise where they have a certain amount of pictures, and I have them create a random picture story with, say, 4 to 6 pictures, so that it sits in the memory structure. So once they acknowledge, they can recognize because they're taking it in, and then they have to see a selected picture from behind the screen. And you know, this doesn't last long because their attention is like zip. So I have to keep it really fast and fun. So this is little Jet, and he's picking up, and he's, how old is he? 6, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's at a good age where they receive really well anyway. So he was seeing the images that the little girl was putting up behind the screen.
Okay. Let's push play on this one. And also with the right side of the brain and the creative side of the brain, they say that things are absorbed. And it actually works, because back when I was in natural medicine college, I could get away without studying, but popping my anatomy book under my pillow and just asking
it really? Yes.
to absorb. So I can attest to that this actually works when we're engaging with right brain.
Yes.
So let's push play on this one, and we'll see the kids.
Oh, can't hear the sound with that one.
Mm-hmm.
I can't hear that one.
My
Can't hear it.
I'll push pause. So yeah, I'm not sure if the audience can comment if they can hear that one. You were saying you couldn't hear that one. Is that right?
No, I couldn't hear it. Yeah, couldn't hear it.
So what you were saying within that, can we talk about the positive affirmations? Because you were giving some beautiful positive encouragement and feedback to Jet. Do you maybe want to?
Yes, it's always and always correct information. Like, no matter what they're saying and what they're picking up, you qualify with them that they're picking that up from somewhere, but you're giving them direction so that they'll pick up what you want them to see. or feel or sense. So you gently persuade them to pick up the information that you want them to see or feel, but you don't disqualify anything else. So if you're holding up the coloured sheets, because they're not using their physical sight, some children will see that as orange, and you say yes, because and this is across the board with all the practitioners that I know anyway. These can look the same, blue can look like green, and green can look like blue, and if they say blue, we say yes until they refine it. I mean, they obviously get better as they go along, and I myself, when I'm looking, say, I'll see this as pink.
Oh, okay.
Using you're not using a physical sight, so you're receiving the information in a different way.
Yeah.
And but they it doesn't take long, and they're saying red, orange. They get the colours correct that you're pulling their attention to. But the mind will wander.
Yeah, it makes sense because you're opening up that trust and that believability within their own gifts and things. So it's mind over matter Jedi training essentially. So for those that couldn't hear, that little dividing board that you had between like the middle of the table, I'll just sort of describe what, because they couldn't hear. But so with Jet was, I guess, looking at the cards to study, and then the other child on the other side was holding them up and knocking, and then Jet was responding, saying what he could see. Is that right?
Yes, what he was seeing through the screen. So it would come in as an image on whatever level he pulled in the information, and he would say to her, "This is the one you're holding up." Yeah.
Which is really cool. And then
it's great.
It'd be so much fun, but you can understand it's a lot of pressure because kids, they want to get it right. They want to also please, the adults and things too. And I guess that's also one of the barriers that we have to break through when we're doing this kind of training is, I know, like even, as a reader, it's to go with the first vital piece of information, not to bring it into our own mental mind to change it, or, you've got to keep it pure. And that's what you're doing with these beautiful kids.
Yes, you almost get into, it's like when you get into a dreamy sort of state. Like if you're overtired and you're so relaxed, you get so much more information coming in because you're not thinking, and you're just it's quietening the mind on every level. And the first subtle little bit that comes in, and not just question it and push it away. And that's why when they're training, I say, yes, this is why. That's correct. I will never say that's wrong. You've done the wrong thing, because it can shut them down. And adults in their life can do that too. We can have a child that's very open in the room that'll be seeing and reading. They'll have their back to the door. And if a mum or dad comes in, or somebody comes in that has a negative to what they're doing and very suspicious mind around the whole process, they can enter the room without the child even knowing they've entered the room, and they'll say, "Oh, I can't see." So
Wow.
So that's
Very
tricky. Yes.
Yeah. Wow. I'd like to look into that and like what's happening with that, because that's fascinating too.
Yeah. Well, it's bringing down the frequency, squashing it.
Yeah, and I think probably like a self-protective mechanism as well. Because there's times when you psychically want to close off and not be around those kind of frequencies and energies. My crown chakra is getting tingly as we talk about that.
Well, that's what we include in the exercises: a private space to escape into, where they're only. It is a private space, and nothing or nobody is allowed to enter that space. It's their space that they can feel safe in and release if they've got any anxiety or doubts about what's happening, so they can bring it down as a golden tube and they can release it, and sort of, so they have that accessible. And we build our own guardians around that too. We imagine what our guardian angel would be, and we build them from the ground up, and we draw a picture of them, and we bring that into the space as well. We have a few things, and that was from the lovely Mary Rodwell that put me onto that one. Yeah. Oh,
she's gorgeous. I've had some regressions with her, and I love her work. Actually, I've got her book down here. I'll just pop a little shout out to her as well. The New Human. So for those that are wanting to find There you go, Mary. So, yeah, so this is called The New Human Awakening to Our Cosmic Heritage by Mary Rodwell. So this is interesting, talking about kids, their psychic abilities and senses, ET contact, and it really helps to make sense for some of those kids that are experiencing contact, and some of those of us that are even adults that have grown up with that side of things. It really helps to find out more information and to feel a little bit normal in this foreign world. So let's get into this video. Who have we got here during the flashcards?
Oh, I won't give his name, but he's common over a lot of the kids I teach with dyslexia.
Yeah.
That I have myself, big time, and so I can relate to these kids on so many levels because I have the spectrum stuff and we have it in the family, so I can relate. I know how they process, Anyway, he's quite okay with his reading. He's struggling a little bit, but he was seeing from behind. I was training him specifically to identify words and sort of separate them from images. So what I did at the start with, I would give him the image with the written word above on different cards, and then I would take it behind him, not telling him that it was just the word. He thought it was the images that were going behind him, because most of the time, as soon as I activate the children in general, I'll start bringing images behind them so they know they're not seeing with their physical eyes. They're bringing another level to prove it to them. Anyway, so I started taking them behind, and he started to identify.
Oh, sorry. That's how you do it over in like Lemuria, how we did it in Atlantis and things too.
Yeah. Well, it's proving to them a lot of the time. A lot of the time they think they must be cheating on some level because they can't believe it themselves sometimes. So I have to prove it. Yeah.
That'd be so beautiful to witness. I'll push play on this one too. Yeah. And if the sound doesn't work, we'll just sort of have a look through the visual. But I'm glad that, thank you for describing what's.
Would you like me to just voice over with this?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, you see how he's pulling his face? This is quite common because he's struggling with how he's seeing. A lot of people will criticize that and say he's trying to look under the mask. He can't. But it's like when you're trying to focus on looking at something, you're pulling faces. So the opening that he's seeing through is quite fuzzy and pixelated. So he's trying to see clearer. So this is what the animation is all about.
Oh,
so he's identifying the words and the pictures, and he's sort of reading some of it. Yeah. Some of the words he can read. So see, look, he's going, oh, it's all fuzzy. It's all fuzzy. It's a bit hard to see. See, he's going. And I told him it's just his brain getting used to seeing this way.
Which is beautiful being shown.
But you know what? Some of them see better from behind than they do anywhere else. They see clearer from behind them.
I wonder why that is, because that was supposedly coming for in Lemuria too. I think it's called hornbeam or something like that.
I think it's just releasing and releasing and just letting it happen. If it's still here, you're still trying to operate this mechanism. You can't see. I wasn't very good at holding it so the camera could see it. If you can't hear it, you don't really know what's happening. But he's reading the words. He thinks the picture. He thinks the pictures are there, but the actual words are there. So he's actually reading the word without knowing he's reading the word.
And imagine the confidence for these beautiful little souls as well.
Yeah, because it's massive. It's massive, and that's only what it's about to me. Because they're not fitting in to the world that they've been plonked in. And, they're at a disadvantage with any sort of overstimulation, like, the spectrum stuff and dyslexia in general. So I know with me, I can't remember anything. I can't retain anything. And I know other adults that have this problem a lot, and you treated like an idiot, that you're silly, you know, because you treat like you're dumb because you can't remember anything. And it's nothing to do with intellect. It's just that mechanism's not quite functioning as expected. I know why it's like that, but, you know.
I can see Jodie saying I'm like that. Yeah, I'm sure there's a few adults in here as well that also, you know, feel the same. And it was interesting with the mouth, because what you were saying, you know, about people maybe thinking he was trying to look underneath. I've noticed the same with some of the beautiful kids I've worked with as a kinesiologist as well, in that, you know, like if they're holding a pencil, it's like a point of focus and concentration. And it's almost like the tongue it's helping to focus the brain, is what I've seen, or when they do the mouth movements. And even with kids with autism, you know, bringing things like right up to the face, they're like picking up different lots of sensory information.
Yes. There's so much. I want to, before I forget, to express the practical reasons of doing this. On one occasion, on more than one occasion, but this is a good one, because I was training with my grandkids and they're quite proficient at it. Whenever my husband has a problem with a piece of his machinery, because he's an earthworks contractor, he would reel in the kids to find out what the problem was. So on this one occasion, his Bobcat had an oil leak and he couldn't locate it. So he had the kids concentrate on the machine. So they hovered around the machine, and Seth picked up a component within the structure of the machine, was like a cylindrical tube. So they have no concept of the mechanism in there. He was just telling him what he could see, and he could see a split that wasn't obvious unless it was put under pressure. So that's why it wasn't detectable. But Seth saw it being under pressure, he saw it opening up, and that was causing the leak. Layla saw a smaller metal component connected to the information, and she said there's something happening with this as well, that my husband understood because he knew the machinery. Anyway, he investigated that. He found the leak. It was a pipe, and was only obvious when it was under pressure. And if that hadn't been corrected, the other component that Layla picked up, it would have caused problems in that area if that hadn't been rectified. So she was seeing into the future.
That's
you know
so
what I mean?
cool.
Yeah. Goosebumps.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
This is the extra that comes with this training, you know, that they can apply. It's fantastic.
And something you can use in everyday life, you know, like if you lose your keys, you know, searching for like where they are. Oh, and I wanted to make sure to mention about one of your grandchildren driving literally in the bush, it looked like, amongst trees, but with the blindfold on. Can you maybe describe that little scene?
Well, it was funny. I was practicing with Wendy on her channel, and I opened up significantly one day, and I joked and I said, I think I could get in the car and drive, but I don't think anyone would come with me to film it. Because they might, you know, think their life's in danger. Anyway, we joked about that. And I said that, I think the next day or something, when I saw Seth, I said, oh, Granny was going to drive the car down the back yesterday. And he said, okay, let's go. And he took off with his blindfold. And I quickly grabbed the iPad. He said, I'll drive. And Layla came and jumped in the back. And we went down. And I was actually initially filming it to send it to Wendy to show her what was happening. So the voiceover wasn't that great, but you'll find it on YouTube. It's boy driving blindfolded, I think, still on YouTube. But we have 26 acres and we have scattered trees. We have a specific track that the kids can drive this little car around on. Anyway, he jumped in the car with full confidence, and I have full confidence with him because he's very, very good at this, and his vision was very broad. So, and he proceeded to drive in through and amongst the trees and telling me that, oh, it looks far away, but it's close. And my granddaughter's in the back, go, watch out, watch. No, look, very irresponsible on my part, but I knew his capabilities, so I wasn't worried. And then he talked about his experience at the end and what he was experiencing while he was driving the car. And that went online and that went viral. And he felt a little bit intimidated by that, but, you know, it's out there. So it was a good experiment for him too, because he was so confident. He wasn't scared. And they don't look. I do treasure hunts with them, and I hide notes under rocks, and I hide things, and they have to find the notes, read them, and find the next note, and they do, because they can see, and they can see beyond the surface of things. So they, they know what they can do.
Oh,
wow. It was an amazing day.
Oh, that's so cool. And it just gets your brain stretched to like, what are the, is there any limitation to this? Like what can our human mind and consciousness achieve? Because that's what it feels like, that they're more working with consciousness rather than just the brain power.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. It's like I said, it's such a broad stroke. It's coming in from everywhere. Yeah. It's not a single mechanism. It's just coming from everywhere. And you know what? With my teaching, I get help from so many different people. I'll just sit in. I'll know when some new information is coming in. So I'll be channeling. We talked about that. I channel everything I do here. And I channel people, like bring the right people into my field that contribute to this skill set, because it's not all me. I've learned from so many others. And can I put this up too?
Oh, yeah, of course. I did have it prompted on my little notes as well, so I'm so glad.
Yeah. So he's put it on the camera.
It's called Mindsight. And what was the name of the author?
Sean McNamara. Even if you type his name into YouTube, you will find him. He has a site.
Sorry, I'm trying to bring it up further. I'm still learning this.
Yeah. If anyone's interested in training as an adult, he's a good resource. Yeah.
So Sean McNamara. Okay.
Mind Possible. See, it's come in. Mind Possible is his site. Yeah, online.
Thank you.
And he's been experimenting. He's been experimenting with all the psi abilities for a long time. And he's just released another book on psilocybin effects with psychic ability through experimenting with different things on that level too. But he's a good resource if anyone wants.
Oh my gosh, that's like that'd be a whole nother show. There's such interesting research going on in that at the moment.
Yes, it's wonderful.
Yeah, and it just and kids that have ADHD or trouble with focus, and they're building new neural network growth with psilocybin and things. One of my friends was actually in a study over in, I think it was Philadelphia, but it really, the environment that you're in does change the results, was what he was saying, that in a clinical setting it felt different to being in a setting where you feel loved and held. I can see Laura put up here as well a question for you as well. Do you believe the strength of telepathy could be related to how strong the connection is between two people?
Yes. Because I've had the privilege of working with some kids for several, 4 years now, it's been evident, Yeah, I think because, your energy fields are what's the word? Connected.
Yeah.
Someone will walk in the room, you have an aversion to them. It's not like you dislike them. It's just that their energy field doesn't sort of level off with yours. If two people have a similar frequency or vibration going on, that connection, in my experience with the kids, has always been stronger, especially with training kids with their parents. So I'll introduce the parents into a couple of lessons initially so they can experience what the children are experiencing. And one little boy in particular started seeing through his mother's eyes. So I was training him, and she was training over in the corner. She just playing around to see what she was picking up, and he started seeing what she was seeing instead of what. I know.
That's so fascinating. And I want to make sure to ask about some of your favorite experiences, but I'll share this last video that we have too. Let me just pop this back up.
Oh, I won't like this.
You want me to, I can take it down?
Yeah, better not with that one.
Yeah, yes. Let's take this one.
I'll get into trouble with that one.
I'll just get you to describe the exercise if you don't mind.
Oh, it's well, only because she's got a blindfold up. I like to keep them
Oh,
reasonably.
that's okay.
Yeah. It's the bottle again, swinging around in a circle quite vigorously, and they have to grab a beanbag off the floor without getting hit by the bottle.
It looked like Mission Impossible. It looked like so much fun.
So, but that's about releasing the left brain instructor. It's about again, intuition. Trust your intuition. Trust your intuition. Know when you're free to access that beanbag. Like trust your input. That's what that exercise is about. Just listen to when you can approach the beanbag in safety.
Yeah. And so with some kids, they would be more picking it up on hearing or, you know, like a clairaudient level. Some kids would more be like really having that vision or that.
Well, in her case, her vision was opening and closing. So we were trying to get it to sit, you know. So she was seeing, but sometimes it would sort of shut down. So we were trying to exercise that, just stay put with her. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, and I just wanted to mention as well that we did pop a link to your Facebook in the comments, and I've also popped it below as well to go onto your Sensing Sight Facebook page. So for people wanting to like reach out and contact, I've also popped your email in there too.
And probably email's the best.
Okay. Oh, cool. And do you want to maybe share like some of your favorite, like what's been maybe a couple of your favorite stories? We're almost at the top of the hour, but have you got a favorite few things that have just been like mind blowing to see?
Well, I guess the top of the list would be a little boy. He was 7 that I worked with, and he came from a couple of sessions. It took some children open pretty quickly, but some children don't. So children aren't always easy, as often I hear, but they might take 3 or 4 sessions to open. But this little boy on the second session, he started to open up, and his mother was present, and I had him starting to read. So he was getting text, and he was reading it from a book. So I called Mum in, and to show her what was happening, and she just sort of looked at me, and I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "But he can hardly read." So he was reading, like he was diagnosed later on as having Erlin's, so he couldn't read without a coloured filter. So because the information was bypassing the physical eyes and going directly, he was able to read, and he was gliding through the reading, and she could not believe that he was reading so efficiently when he was stuttering before, and he couldn't quite grasp the text. So that was, and it was really obvious.
And it's so funny you said like about, you know, like picking up on reading when he wasn't so good. Because sometimes I'll get visions like, you know, as things are happening. And I was actually going to ask you that question for, you know, being in a family where there's a lot of dyslexia and things like that. I was going to ask because there can be, I guess our neural network has to process like 5 different ways, I think it is, whereas a neurotypical brain will maybe just read from one way that the brain's activating, not have to re-circuit the whole thing. Do you think that it really is just bypassing the electrical brain field, that he's just tapping into maybe that or getting entangled with the energy and the information in that?
Yeah. I know what you mean. I've seen a bit of research from other people looking at that side of it. But yeah, well, like I said, the mechanism, however it works, I just see evidence of it. And I teach them telekinesis. We move psi wheels underneath glass cylinders. They have evidence of that. Once they start moving things with their mind, they see that they can do that. We move on from there. We don't continue. We do like spoon bending, so that they can manipulate. Yeah. Anything they can do tangibly and see evidence of it is important to me. So I don't tell them that this can happen. I show them that this can happen.
That's so cool.
Oh, I lost the sound.
I must have knocked it. So Laura said, similar to putting a book under your pillow. And it's funny because I did tell my teachers that because they were beautiful, like Hogwarts style teachers. And yeah, they were cute. They were like, that's really cool, but like, you've still got to study.
Yeah. Well, the kids can do that too, just quickly. They can put their hand, not every time. They've just placed their hand on top of the book and they can see 6 pages in. And they can describe images, and they get a sense of even what the construct of the story. They don't specifically say this is what it is, but they know roughly what the actual story is about. So they, there's all sorts of things. Yeah.
And I've heard that I think it was either the Chinese super psychic kids, I think it was, would have like the book under the feet. I remember there was one situation with a Harry Potter book, and it wasn't even in English or Japanese or Chinese or whichever. I forget if it's what continent it was on, but I remember that the child could translate or still pick up on the energy of the story and the characters. So really, language is not a barrier at all. No. And I've noticed that in readings. I've had words come through in Persian, Russian, Japanese, that I have no concept or way of knowing, and in Spanish. And all of a sudden it will be totally related to what we're talking about. Actually, there's one I want to share. And this is, what these kids are capable of and what adults are capable of too. So I don't want anyone to lose hope if they're an adult, because we can do it as well. I had one gorgeous client who was Persian, and unfortunately his father had passed at about when he was 4 years old. And there was a phrase that I got, and I said, I'm hearing something, but it's not English. And I spoke it, and the vision I'm seeing is your father's energy, and I'm hearing this walk light on the path that you choose. And I kept seeing this vision. Anyway, it turns out that what I said in Persian was those words that I was trying to reference in English. And it turns out that was his father's last words before he passed.
Oh, wow.
So I just think that if we can come into contact and quantumly entangle ourselves with information and really know that our brains are capable of so much more. And that's what I love about what the work that you're doing, which, to me, it's not work. It's like your passion and your purpose and your mission of why you're here, Leonie. It's such a gorgeous soul.
It took a while, but I've gotten there. Well, I've always felt that from when I was tiny. I always felt like I was here for something, and it was strange. It was a strange world to be in. And I knew I was going to do something, and it took until I was like 59, 58, what am I? 57 to do it.
Well, it's never too late, as they say. And,
no, it isn't.
It's interesting when you look at astrology, and maybe like the planets were in the right position for everything just to open up at that age as well, for all the kids to come in. And yeah, we are in the age of Aquarius. So I just hope that this keeps expanding and you keep just getting to have fun with it, because that's what I see with you, is this just lights you up, and that joy is contagious with the kids.
Yeah, well, I get to be a big kid. That's the main reason. I get to play with kids because I well, I would listen to that little voice, that soft, subtle voice that's always there. And as adults, we need to listen to that more, because that's all the information coming in, and not to dismiss. Isn't that? Do you think?
It's so true. Yeah. And I think you're teaching kids to also have that beautiful discernment. And it's just that's what we need, that discernment in the world, and really teaching them to attune themselves with frequency and to protect and maintain that frequency. And I think with everything that's getting programmed and pushed, it's not going to hurt to have these beautiful, strong, amazing souls that have their own discernment and to really see through the truth of what's going on.
Yeah. And they'll pass it on to the next generation.
Exactly. And we're also going to be adapting, and the hardwiring of the brain's going to change with further evolution of this too. So yeah, you're laying those beautiful foundations for future generations. So I just want to say a huge thank you to you for coming on the show. And I would love to chat to you about further developments and, areas of interest and amazing stories down the road. So don't forget, people, that in the description, we have Leonie's links. And I also want to say thank you to Laura for sharing before. She found, or she typed in, I popped it up on the screen earlier, just a big thank you for you typing out. She popped the name of the book and also had the reference as well for what we were talking about. Oh, I can't find where it is, but I popped it up at the time. So yeah, thank you to the audience for participating and your questions and things and your comments. We really, really appreciate you. But thank you, Leonie. It's just been such a pleasure to chat to you.
Thanks, Solreta. It's been great.
All right, you take care. Bye, everyone.